All right, this is two guys, two mics, two drinks here at our local at Ankole Grill. I'm James Smart.
I'm Marvin Tumbo. This is AfroPolitico.
Welcome, everyone. All right, great. Lots of things to discuss.
Yeah, quite a big one.
Price of progress. I suppose that's a good title for our show today. The price of progress. What are we paying for it? So we're going to discuss if Kenya is broke or not. We'll talk about money missing, our national thieves taking away money. We'll also talk about referendum at some point, and also talk about the rule of law.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
Price of progress is a good place to start. I think generally we are paying for a lot that wasn't done when it's supposed to be done. We are paying for a lot that was done that shouldn't have been done. Yeah. And who's bearing that cost is a question now.
That sounds like an Alfred Mutua line. You know, some things that were done that are not supposed to be done.
No,
things
I
that
could
are done
expound. You know, if you
My coffee's here. Hang on to that thought. Literally. All right, everyone. So the first thing on the price of progress, want to figure out, is Kenya broke or not? And this obviously comes about from the huge question about paying taxes.
Yep.
Last month that has passed. And now the conversation is, do we have a revenue problem? Do we have an expenditure problem? I suppose that's a good place to start to differentiate two things. It's not that Kenyans are not paying tax. Mm-hmm. It's not that we're not paying enough. It's not that our businesses and individuals are not paying enough tax. In my view, it's the expenditure of that has been a problem.
I'm not too sure though. Yeah, if you look at our tax brackets, majorly focused on the formal economy. And the biggest market in this country is the informal economy. So how then do you add them into the tax bracket, to ensure that we are actually collecting enough? And then also consider the thievery that has been happening around tax collection. Yeah, that has been something that has taken away government revenues for the longest time. And which is why, if you look at the movement in terms of revenue collection, we were able to move from probably 200 billion in 2002. Right now, you're looking at 1 point something trillion?
Okay, so let's back up a bit. The moment we are collecting 200 billion, the conversation should be how we spend the 200 billion. So that we expand the discussion. Like, on the 200 billion that we have, we're spending so much on paying personal
recurrent expenditures.
Recurrent expenditures, not so much on development. So now we can now expand that and say whether we collect 15 trillion a month or whether we collect 5 trillion a month.
Fair enough, yeah. Government is a factor of resources, and it depends on where now do you prioritize the resources. And if you don't, for instance, if you look at education, education takes over 300 billion of our budget. When you look at health supposed to take around probably 150 billion.
Yes, it's supposed to be 15%.
15%. Of the
so our budget
GDP.
now is about 3.7 trillion. I think
3.7 trillion.
Yeah.
So when you calculate that, and then also if you look at our revenues, it's 1 point something trillion.
Yeah.
Now our issue at the moment is how then do we finance all other infrastructure projects, considering there are certain key assets, there are certain key amenities that government is supposed to provide. These are public utilities, they are public goods. So while you're providing public goods, you must find somewhere the money to actually build the infrastructure. So that's where also, when you're talking about debt issues, that's where debt financing comes in, to be able to support what we are not able to collect internally. And hence also the taxation and the levies.
I mean, it's trusted, it's given. The other conversation that I don't think we've not spoken about a lot more is the question of, I think the same that we do with politics as well, that we talk about when it's during political times, we talk about how we are going to get this new road to this new community. We talk about a bridge, we're talking about school, we're talking about things we'll bring to this community.
But not how.
And we have a very good phrase, we say sharing the national cake.
Yes.
So we talk a lot more about how we share the national cake. We don't talk a lot more about how do we prepare the national cake. How do we bake it in essence? And I suppose this is where the disconnect comes.
We bake with debt.
Yeah.
In quite a number of respects.
Absolutely. So if for the debt, and this comes from, I think, the previous president, Mwai Kibaki, who had an economist and a very clear understanding of how he wanted his government to run. And he spread the debt into three. There was multilateral, bilateral, and then, of course, commercial debt. In his mind, he said that they will take commercial debt to infrastructure or things that can pay for themselves.
Okay.
We'll take multilateral debts for things that are more social but also can pay for themselves. And bilateral, mostly for things that we can share across with other countries. So it's a sort of like a resource shared. Now, the thing about thinking around that as an economist, it makes sense in terms of course, how much you pay back. Okay. Because commercial debt vis-a-vis bilateral debt, your commercial debt you pay a bit more than a bilateral debt. Of course. So in that kind of thinking, then it made sense on the things that he did. And that's why Thika Road came through and a bit of quite infrastructural project. So obviously then you have a new government which came with a different economic thinking, pretty much the same, but...
For me, I think the new government and the new thinking that came in was we were so far behind in terms of our development agenda. Yeah, right now, which is why you can talk about, when you talk about Kibaki's legacy, you can talk about probably three things. You can talk about the new constitution, you can talk about Thika Road, you can talk about probably free primary education. But right now, when you look at what has been financed, you can talk about the SGR, you can talk about like thousands of kilometers of roads. You can talk about healthcare in all counties. So there is so much. There was a bigger dream to be able to offset the development deficit that we had for the last 50 years. So and that, I think, for me, was a more important thing.
Yeah.
And how it's financed is along the same frameworks.
So I'll say this. Having observed, a couple of economists and that sort of thing, and the genuine and the general conclusion is this, that Kenya has to try sail close to the wind as much as possible. So get as much loan that we can pay for, because this country has proven over time we can pay for that loan.
Yes.
And get this country on a path of economic takeoff.
I think we are there, and we'll see that probably over the next 4 years.
Brilliant. Our national thieves, who are national assets, over a period of time, have spirited away 15 trillion Kenya shillings in escrow and offshore accounts. And they're here with us, and they're telling us, you know what, tighten your belts and that kind of stuff. Here's the thing, just to set this up, to give possibly, I think, a good context. In Tanzania, if there is money that has been spirited away in Tanzania, chances are that is minerals, stuff that, it's not taxes.
Yes.
All right? In Kenya, however, that is a deal that someone put through, taxpayers paid for it, and the money just didn't show up here, or the money came and it went to different accounts.
Yep.
That is what we are, and that's what we have at the moment.
Now, I think when you look at the problem, 15 trillion is probably 5 times our current budget?
Our budget. It covers Uhuru's Kenyatta's the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Without asking us for a coin.
Okay. And this has happened over how long? Over the last 50 years?
50 years, yes.
Yeah? Now, I'm only... The only reason I'm a bit hopeful now, and first of all, at least we have a figure to work with.
Yes.
For the first time.
We didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't know.
100 billion, 1 trillion. We didn't know.
It was guesswork. Yeah. Now we have a figure to work with. But I think also the effort that we are seeing at the moment in terms of repatriating this cash back is central. To operations, so that even when you're talking about financing and debt issues, repatriation is becoming a big deal, which is why you've seen agreements signed with offshore destinations, like Jersey, Switzerland, with the UK, with the Virgin Islands, and the moment now the money starts coming back, I think even when you talk about the fight against corruption, I think we'll start seeing through these deals, it will be much more difficult also to take the money there. So it's not just a matter of bringing it back.
It's about stopping.
It's about stopping movement of cash across borders that is not sanctioned per se.
I suppose we also have to be a bit imaginative in our laws. And two things for me that spring out in my head are very clearly are this. That one, we must very quickly operationalize the Freedom of Information law. All right? That
MPs have refused.
Yeah, so that's the point, Mr. We have to be a bit imaginative, because this is the sort of the first line of defense for us to start investigating ourselves and investigating our accounts. General people, someone should be able to show up and say, as a government officer or whatever it is, I need to know how much this guy has earned.
Yes.
You know, I need to know his taxes and whatever it is and what money is filed. And that way, when individuals are, government facilitates that, all right? Which I say has to be something that we have to be imaginative with our law, and I think it has to be a political issue as well to be pushed. So that is one.
Do you think this issue of being able to do, what do you call it, what the senior government official procurement officers are going through now,
Yeah.
do you think that would be part and parcel of the information, or we
It
would
has
not
to.
need this if we had?
If we had a freedom of information, we wouldn't need to do
We would
this.
not need to
yeah,
do
yeah.
the-
We would need to have, because essentially the problem with the current setup on how government contracts and senior government officials and how things are going is that yes, they say they file taxes and they give returns and they say, well, this is what I'm worth and that sort of thing, but it's not expressly clear that it is supposed to be published anywhere.
Yeah.
All right, so it's sort of like a lacuna in law.
But have you? This bill has been in Parliament for how long now? Yeah.
For almost 7 years.
For almost 7 years.
Yeah.
So is it an issue? And considering that our lawmakers are the ones who have kept it there, they've refused. I mean, because they feel it's going to expose them.
So we have to find ways to make this a political issue, because
fair
otherwise,
enough.
otherwise we cannot be able to debate it fairly, and citizens cannot be able to say why this thing is important. So that is one. Then secondly, on terms of law, we have to do what the Americans have, which is a law that they call of what do they call it? Something about unexplained wealth law. All right, and basically what that means is this: that any government department or government official, the UK has a serious fraud office or whatever it is, when they look at you and say things are not making sense, 1 + 1 is becoming 11 in this case, they're able to open it up, not as a judicial conquest, but as an investigative conquest. Then that one, back up with the Freedom of Information Act or law, it will help us to be a bit more open society, because things about openness, because these guys are thriving because of opaqueness, because that they can hide in our laws, in our own laws.
But funny enough, is that this happens across all jurisdictions. Yeah?
It's true.
Take Estonia, take the bank. You've seen like $200 billion dollars was laundered through institutions and countries that are said to have the strongest legislations and whatnot. So also it's a moral than the people issue.
It is true. But I think the difference with them, I suppose, is that once they happen, it doesn't happen very often. That it can happen, that someone can come up with
$200 billion.
Yeah, but they don't lose $200 billion every day.
It wasn't daily. It's the same way we're talking about 15 trillion.
Yeah, over a period of time.
Over a period of time.
Yeah.
Also, that is also over a period of time, despite the laws being there. So, because even take the US, a lot of the money being laundered is coming from there. It's just lawyers who are finding and finessing their way around laws.
I suspect nothing stops us from creating a society and a law that is a bit much more open to stop the theft. It doesn't mean that the thieves will not find ways to steal from us. That's what I'm saying. That it's
more
fine.
difficult, I guess.
Yeah. We just make it more difficult for them. Like, listen, now people can wake up and, spirit some money away from us and take it away. Let's make it a bit more difficult. Let's make the people who've stolen and make it a matter of public inquiry.
The political issue for 2022. I agree with that.
This is, I think, bread and butter of what Kenya is. That
what politics?
Politics. It's our national sport. I suspect, if there was
athletics a close second.
Athletics comes a close second. We break records with politics. So barely a year from
after the
general election, all right, that was extremely exhausting. Took us 2 years before that to set up to that,
and then 6 months.
6 months of chaos and whatever. We are seriously building up another political season that will come maybe 2 years from now. How brilliant is that as a national sport? How do you like that as a national sport?
It is exhausting, to be honest, because I can't think, from a business point of view, how we all suffered. because of that chaos.
Yes.
And then now for you to think that you are not only going to go through that twice, now the seasons will be longer. Maybe now you're looking at 3 years of elections, man.
Yep.
Yeah. So the referendum and whatever it creates, and then after that, the fallout, and then the new institutions, and then the next campaign and whatnot. It's bloody exhausting, man.
So politically, what's happening, I suspect, is this, that realignments, we have to have new realignments before 2022. So the referendum first serves a political need. First.
As the 2010 one did
Yes.
for the deputy president.
For the deputy president, as the 205 did for Raila Odinga. So essentially, it's a political tool, a massive political tool for 2022. That is one, obviously. Then the second problem that it tries to solve against a political problem, which is a matter of seats, because the people who essentially have a chance to be president in 2022 realize that this cycle of just having one running mate is a problem. It basically hamstrung.
It locks out every other
any person you can deal with.
Yes.
All right. As soon as I say Marvin is my running mate, everyone is like, okay, yeah, whatever, man.
But also, I guess the idea where you have is winner takes all.
Yeah.
In that,
so there's nothing in parliament, nothing else for everyone.
There's nothing else. Yeah. So there's no leader of opposition per se who is within a legislative framework. Yeah. To actually act.
The idea that people would still be MP and still run for elections, well, like we are recycling leaders forever and ever and ever. Okay. So the magic bullet was you run for elections, and then once you lose, you're out. You don't have a political office to sort of sustain you.
That doesn't work, has it?
Yeah, that is what guys were trying to solve. And obviously, it's fallen flat. For some guys, honestly, it has worked. I mean, there are some guys who they've not won seats from 2010 or 2012, and now they look like they're
the new kids on the block.
So the political problem of this referendum is just that. My problem is that it's a cost burden to taxpayers. A big one.
IBC looks whatever says they need 12 billion.
Yeah, and it will cost more. I suspect maybe
Definitely
20 to 30 billion to do a referendum. Then put the whole country into a political mood again. And then we'll have to do the political fallouts after that. Obviously, this the thing about what question it is, and whether we're trying to.
What questions do you think they will be?
So I think one, we have to solve the question of devolution, which has been posed as a problem for the political class. There's the feeling that devolution and all these seats that were introduced by this new constitution are taking resources and money away from the government. Now, I've seen numerous people debunk it and say, listen, that is not the problem. The problem is elsewhere. Look elsewhere. But the political class thinks and feels a problem. And I feel there's a merit to that.
No, I'm not sure. For instance, when you look at any other bicameral system, when you take the U.S., the sets of laws for the Senate and the sets of laws for the lower house, for Congress, they are different in that you have 6-year runs, you have 2-year runs, and then so the Senate was protected by law to actually check the executive. Yeah. But in this case, it's just, I guess, a place of retirement. It's like the House of Lords in the UK, where it's a peerage issue. You're just put there to retire once you are old enough.
I think we have to bite the bullet and say in many ways that there are things that we had postulate as Senate. There's counties that we had postulate, all 47 of them, and viable institutions, and the things that we had set up in our constitution that were aspirational, because I suspect our document was more aspirational, but
practical.
But we can say some things that have not worked. All right, for instance, the question of having.
But is one term enough for you to say that something hasn't worked?
Nothing, of course not, but nothing stops us from changing laws immediately after 2010 and 2011, changing it. Nothing stops us.
All right. My point being, if you're not going to give something time to work, because...
How much time would that
No, I would have said at least 2 terms,
But this is 2 terms.
No, man.
We finished 2 elections.
The second term hasn't ended. We are just... at the beginning of the second term.
You're not clear about when the term of the ends, so you're just saying 2 terms, because Uhuru Kenyatta has finished 2 terms.
No, that's just dumb, man.
No, listen, legally, if today anything happens, Uhuru Kenyatta cannot run again. He's done his 2 terms. So it doesn't matter if there's a beginning or the end.
At the end of the second term, are you happy?
See, you're also dumb. Very dumb. I think you have to look this through the lens of time. the constitutional office of the DCI, DPP, and over the last few months, of course, the cases that they're dealing with now, some horrible, or cases about killings, Sharon killing, Monica Kimani, and many others. Just the other day, talk about NOC officials, National Olympic. This case happened last year or beginning of the other year, and this is when the officials who stole from the public because we saw the theft, are being brought to book. So we have, for the first time in a little less than 3 or 4 months, a DCI and a DPP who are working in tandem, working together. Again, very quickly, I have to say, I've seen the criticism that, well, we can only judge them after convictions. But what do you think so far?
I think for the first time, and it begs the question, how compromised were the previous officers or officers, in terms...
Maybe they didn't understand their brief.
Probably. I don't know. I think I would be harsher. Yeah? I'd be harsher because by virtue of being in certain positions, clearly, the money you're earning and everything else, the brief is the first thing.
Right.
So I'd be harsher. I guess I think now you have people who have a certain ethic to their job. They have a certain work ethic. They have a certain moral ethic. Yeah, and then also you're seeing collaboration in ways that we never saw before.
Yeah.
Where you're seeing all constitutional bodies, institutions who are actually working together. You're seeing the CBK now coming in terms of serious financial fraud and aiding the DCI and the DPP in terms of uncovering. You're seeing the CBK as well punishing banks that are aiding and abetting corruption and whatnot. You're seeing the DCI going after people like with a certain immediacy that was lacking before. You're seeing the DPP actually prosecuting cases and putting senior prosecutors, not just police officers, assigning them to cases. So I think it's the change of guard at the top has just rejuvenated the entire institution, and nothing really special happened beyond that.
I think it makes like you say very clearly, begs the question what these other characters were doing before. And for me, it is a question of constitutionality and constitutionalism, which are two different things. That we can have a new constitution, but until and unless we have this constitutionalism, that you are bringing people into office who understand their brief, who have a certain gravitas and morality to what they're doing, then we're able to see the results that we're seeing. So I still hold that I think the office of the DCI and DPP need to be given time before we start, pointing fingers at them like where are the convictions and that sort of thing. We need to give them time. The public, because part of this problem, I think, with holding a public office, you need public confidence.
Yep.
To do the things that you're able to do. For you to go after a governor, and governor spending 1 month
without
bail, that has never, ever, ever happened in this country.
Yeah.
Okay. Prominent personalities. All right.
Principal secretaries, MPs,
and whatnot. People are spending nights in jail, and we can argue so much about what happens, convictions, but it's a legal process. To have your day in court means that you have to take the wheels of justice with its speed.
Exactly.
Which comes with it. All right. That's the
constitutionalism also you're talking about.
Yeah. So why would anyone want us to speed up the cases of a governor so that we don't give them their day in court? They have to have their day in court.
Right,
and whether that takes 1 year, 3 years, 10 years, let them have their day in court so that this matter can be dealt with finality.
And maybe just as an addition, I think if we are to be honest with ourselves as a country, seeing certain things like public confidence can only happen, I guess, over time. Because the immediacy of these arrests and the going down of buildings and whatnot is a temporary, what do you call it? A temporary high.
Yeah.
But over time now, you'll find that once these convictions start happening, and for me, the most important thing about what we are seeing with these particular offices is that the preventive aspect of it. Yeah. Because the moment you start seeing people who we thought had air cover, people who thought were untouchable, the moment you start seeing them actually going to jail and being prosecuted and actually being jailed, it means anyone in that capacity, like right now, I was being told, no PS wants to sign any monies until it's cleared even by the DCI.
All the bases have been covered.
Yeah. So, and I think just by virtue of people being like more guarded now, they don't want to sign anything unless it takes them down. I think it is working.
For me, the message would be just, I think, to the DPP to find more imaginative ways around prosecution. The law allows and gives him a chance to take some cases and have a public prosecutor, have a lawyer elsewhere who is of the same gravitas to prosecute one of these high-profile cases.
Yes.
Because I think we almost have an O.J. Simpson kind of scenario happening with this public, at least 2 cases that are in mind, that proved to be cases of the century for us.
Yes.
And one, I think, is the Governor Bado's case.
Yeah.
And I think the other one is Joey and Jackie Maribe's case. Those 2 cases are very important to help the public to see how the laws of justice actually work. All right? And I suspect if we got a prosecutor who's from the outside, who's another lawyer, who has profile and whatnot to prosecute these cases, we would have finally embed what we actually try to talk about.
And I think part of the imagination as well, and I've been informed that the law currently allows for plea bargains.
Yes.
In that you see people who are stolen money, as long as they return the money, they get a lesser.
Absolutely.
So I think
Absolutely.
that also is a more imaginative approach that we should see more of.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, a political issue. And I think you have to give the country, possibly this is the president and MPs sort of level, to make this a political issue as well. For our national thieves, we give them time and tell them, listen, you have the next 6-8 months.
Amnesty, period.
Amnesty, yes. Please return. We want to see in our accounts at least 15 trillion shillings checking in. And then we can discuss your...
Lowering taxes.
Yes. All right. Great people. It's always mad fun to hang out with you and talk about matters that have happened in the country for the month. And listen, by the time, this country is crazy, man. Things happen like so fast. The news cycle is this fast. And we're happy to chill and sit down and, talk about these issues in very personal way. So we hope you come to Ankole Grill the next time. Come in, walk in. Hey, there's no opinion that is wrong. There's no one is right. Just speak your mind. That's what
Let us know what we can discuss next, actually.
Absolutely, yes. Comment, James Smart.
Marvin Tumbo.
On which program?
This is AfroPolitico. Out.